But then we get this word bondservant. The Greek word, like I said, doulos, it means servant or it can mean slave. And that has caused quite a bit of trouble for some people. There's several verses, especially in the Old Testament, that Christians in the South, back before Civil War days, would point to and say, see, the Bible's telling us right here. It's okay. And I have actually come across this challenge many, many, many times. There's a group of guys, kind of like, outdated now, but referred to as the New Atheists. Following 9/11, they came along and said, look, see, religion is bad. This is what religion gets us, and they're all the same. And so they would point at things, and they would say, see, you want to say the Bible's good, but the Bible condones slavery. Look in the Bible, there's slaves in the Bible. And so I wanted to take some time and address that issue of slavery in the Bible. Does the Bible condone, does it support, does it endorse slavery? No. No, it does not. Not what we would consider as slavery. Does the Bible prohibit slavery? Again, no. There is no command that says, do not have slaves. But you also have to remember that word does not just mean slave, it also means servant. And if we're looking at this from our 21st century American post-Civil War slavery, Atlantic slave trade mindset, then we're going to horribly misunderstand what's going on in the Bible. In the Bible, you have what's called indentured servitude. It is I have no money, I am poor, I cannot feed my family, let me work for you. I will be your servant. I will bond myself to you, and you will care for me and mine. And so you would even have where they kind of parcel out their kids, Here, put my son to work because I cannot feed him, and he will be bonded to you. It was completely voluntary. There was nothing in that was, as we would look back and think of slavery, that we imposed upon Africans in America. The American transatlantic slave trade was completely unbiblical. There is nothing in the Bible that would support what went on in America and Europe. First off, like I said, it was voluntary. But second, you are not to be harsh. We got a slide up there. We should have a verse from Leviticus 25, verse 43. It says, you shall not rule over him with rigor, but you shall fear your God. And so it's talking about when you have a servant. Now they're bonded to you. They're yours. They're in your household. Their survival, their whole livelihood, everything about them, completely dependent on you. And it says, but you will not rule over them with rigor. Instead, you're going to fear God. Because remember, as we talked about, created in the image of God. That person may be your servant. They may be wholly dependent on you to live or not. But they are created in the image of God, the same as you are. Next, kidnapping is illegal. It says, he who kidnaps a man and sells him, or if he is found in his hand, shall be surely put to death. Exodus 21:16. Kidnapping is illegal. Hey, sailing over to Africa, grabbing people, throwing them on a boat, and holding them against their will and making them work is anti-biblical. So whenever someone wants to say the Bible endorses slavery, well, whatever word you want to define for slave, it's not what we think about as Americans in the West looking back at what happened in our history. Actually, what you see going on is a lot of protections of servants. Most of the laws in the Old Testament that have to do with slavery are for the protection of the servant and for the protection of the rights of the servant. In Israel, they had a rule where you had to let someone go. If you buy a Hebrew servant, he shall serve 6 years, and in the 7th he shall go free and pay nothing. So you can't take a servant and then just hold on to him and never let him go. You cannot keep them against their will. In Israel, 7 years, and you had to let them go. Also, you couldn't just turn them out destitute. In Deuteronomy 15:12, it says, if your brother, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, is sold to you and serves you 6 years, Then in the 7th year you shall let them go free from you. And when you send him away from you, you shall not let him go away empty-handed. You shall supply him liberally from your flock and from your threshing floor and from your winepress. From what the Lord has blessed you with, you shall give to him. And so you wouldn't just toss them out destitute. There's still this care. This is a person created in the image of God there to be cared for, not just thrown out and mistreated. Also, in Israel, in Deuteronomy 23, 15 and 16, it says, you shall not give back to his master the slave of one who escaped from his master to you. He may dwell in your midst in the place which he chooses within one of your gates, where it seems best to him. You shall not oppress him. See, especially if you compare the laws of Israel to the law of, say, the Code of Hammurabi in Babylon back then, according to other cultures in the area, you had to return a slave. So if you were a slave and you escaped Babylon and you ran over to Egypt, it's a bit of a trek, but they would give you back. Israel says, no. If a foreign slave comes in your land, you do not give them back. Next it says that you are not allowed to injure a servant. That if you actually injure your servant, they are to go free. If a man strikes the eye of his male or female servant and destroys it, he shall let him go free for the sake of his eye. And if he knocks out the tooth of his male or female servant, he shall let him go free for the sake of his tooth. Now, that's not just limited to eyes and teeth. This is giving a general principle. Right? It was common back then, and we may want to go, ooh, that's kind of harsh, but it was common that you discipline someone with corporal punishment. So there would be, a whipping or a caning or whatever that might be involved. Okay, we can wrestle with that. But if you were such a harsh master that you went overboard and you caused injury to your servant, they go free. And the rules for setting servants free still apply. You can't just throw them out. You got to give them stuff too. And so here we're seeing protection. That's saying, hey, masters, don't mistreat your servants, because if you harm them, you have to let them go. Next, killing a slave was a punishable offense. And if a man beats his male or female slave with a rod so that he dies under his hand, he shall surely be punished. And the punishment in the Old Testament for murder, it was a capital offense. They had the death penalty. And so, whereas in other cultures around there, people could mistreat, beat, injure, kill their slaves, and who cares? It's just our property. In Israel, it was no. That is a creature of God, created in his image. It is to be protected. Lastly, subservients would choose to stay with their masters. It says, and if it happens that he says to you, I will not go away from you, because he loves you in your house, since he prospers with you, then you shall take an awl and thrust it through his ear to the door, and he shall be your servant forever. Also to your female servant you shall do likewise. Notice what it says. So let's say you've had a servant, and then 7th year is coming around, time to set him free, and they go, I don't want to go free. Hey, I'm prospering with you. I like working for you. I want to stay. I'm going to prosper better with you than I will somewhere else. I want to stay. It's one thing that stood out to me as I was kind of looking at different issues of slaves in the Old Testament and ancient culture. Being a slave, a bondservant, was a position, not a place on the social ladder. So slaves would still be educated. They could learn trades. They could learn skills. They would be put in charge of estates. There were all kinds of, they could rise in stature socially. It just so happened that they were bonded to this other person in their work. And if it came about that it was time for you to go free, but you said, no, I want to stay with you because with you I prosper. And so we see James, the brother of Jesus, saying, I am a bond servant of God and of our Lord Jesus Christ.